For those out there who don't know what agoraphobia is, there's two versions of it. There's one where people don't like to be in crowds. That's not my version. And then there's a second where people have an issue with open areas where your equilibrium goes off and you start getting anxiety because it feels like the world's turning upside down on you. That's my version of agoraphobia that I have. There's two spectrums of it. And usually it's initiated through depression and tragedy and shit like that. There's a lot of people out there who've been abused as children who have the same form of agoraphobia as I do, where it's hard for them to go outside their home and go out into public and shit like that. It's not so much going out into like a store or going out to eat that's the problem. It's like taking a main highway or some place that's real open or where there's a lot of fucking fields like Utah. And some of these open plain areas is just too much, where it looks like the ocean and the sky and the land goes on as far as the eye can see, and there's nothing to grab onto. My equilibrium requires some kind of psychological balance, and you can't get it whenever you're out in the field. I was probably between 17 and 19, towards my 20s. That's when the agoraphobia finally started kicking in, and I think the last straw was what happened to me down in Florida. Yeah, folks, I was living in Missouri. I grew up in the city of St. Louis and then ended up moving out in the country. And then at some point in time, I decided with my wife, she wasn't my wife at this point, that we were going to go down to Florida. And we get down to Florida, and that's where my dad lived, and I thought that I might be able to piece together a relationship with him. I failed. I wasn't able to build a relationship with him. He lived down the road, but he didn't really want to do the father-son thing. He'd kind of made up his mind that he didn't have kids. And then eventually he got stuck with my brother and sister whenever my mother wasn't able to do anything anymore. And I remember my brother calling me at school one time. He calls me up and says, "Hey, bro," he goes, "I missed the bus. Can you come pick me up?" So me and my wife, Dawn, at this point down in Florida, we did eventually get married, and she was pregnant with my first child, and we ended up getting into, I was driving a 74 Lincoln. I think it had like a 420, 480 motor or some shit like that. Big fucking tank of a vehicle. Huge fucking car. Unfortunately, the air conditioning system did not work, and our windows didn't roll down because they were electric and they were blown out from some kind of fuse. That's probably why I got the vehicle so fucking cheap. I think I got that shit for under $1,000, but it was a fucking machine, boy. A tank. So I go to pick him up, and apparently there was more to it. Apparently he didn't just miss the bus. Apparently my brother had gotten himself suspended from school from getting into a fight with some people. But he didn't tell me that until way later. So we're driving down the road. We're heading back. I'm heading back to drop him off at Dad's house. And just as we're getting down to an intersection, this little old lady pulls her car out when I'm about like 30 feet away. And when you're in a big old tank like a Lincoln, it's extremely hard to stop that vehicle. The older vehicles, they didn't always stop. You know, the moment you hit the brakes, like a lot of these vehicles nowadays, these foreign vehicles where they just, you hit the brake and it's like instant. Not the older cars, not Chevys and Lincolns. Those motherfuckers, they would still go for a little bit. And they were terrible in the snow. So she pulls out, and I realized within that moment that if I didn't do something, I was going to drive right through her little tiny ass car and I would kill this old lady. Not intentionally, obviously, but the vehicle was so big and her car was so small that I knew that if I kept on going straight, it was going to smack her. But there were like crop fields on each side with a ditch in between. It was like a little tiny kind of ditch where it would be very painful. I got a pregnant wife. And I'm thinking, what do I do? Do I hit the fucking car? Or do I swerve off and then put my wife and my brother in danger? So with quick thinking, I ended up turning the steering wheel real hard and my vehicle turned sideways and I kind of smacked the bitch's car with my Lincoln. I don't hit it front on, but it turned sideways, kind of, and it pushes her car several feet. It like smacks her, but it kind of lowered the whiplash. My brother's face smacked up against the back window, but it didn't break it. And my wife got jerked a little bit, but she was fine. And my brother, he had a sore jaw, but he was okay. And this is fucking amazing. I get out of the vehicle to see if this old lady's all right. And she's like, where did you learn how to drive, oh, young man? And I'm like, bitch, you fucking pulled out right whenever I had the right of way. I'm going, and you pull out, just literally feet from where I'm at. Well, people witnessed it. People that were driving behind and coming forward, they seen what happened. And the insurance companies, they agreed that this little old lady shouldn't even be driving. I don't even think she had insurance. And because she didn't have insurance, something cute happened. Because the vehicle I was driving was a fucking old antique car, 1974, no one was willing to give me the money to repair my fucking car. They were willing to give me a couple $100 and shit. But her insurance wasn't going to cover the dick. I had full insurance and shit, but my insurance didn't want to do anything with it because it was an old fucking car. I might as well been driving a fucking doom buggy or a fucking tractor or something because they didn't want to do shit. They're like, that's a piece of shit. Put it away. It wasn't a piece of shit, though. It was man, if that car would have been fixed up, if that Lincoln would have been fixed up, it would have been quite the fucking heart-throbbing machine. Big fucking beast. That's what we called it sometimes, the beast. Ooh. Oh. Yes. But yeah, that could have turned into a shit sandwich without the bread.